What's up?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, happy to have you. I'm curious, what have you been doing with all this time off of the road this year? Have you been picking up any new hobbies or projects to keep yourself busy?
Let's see here. Last summer I grew a garden, which was fun, which is great. But I've written a few songs here and there. I have come up with about, I don't know, 100 different ways to be bored out of my mind. I have traveled when I could. You know, I was, when the pandemic happened, I mean, I took it very seriously, and I still take it very seriously. So I haven't traveled that much, you know. So I try to be creative. I try to stay positive, and that's, I haven't done much anything else other than that.
I know. I think that's kind of the same for everybody. But what's growing good in the garden? I'm very curious to know that.
Oh wow, we grew everything. I mean, you name it. I had so much. I called it the Green Monster. I had this big sign. The Green Monster is left field in Fenway Park, and I had this sign made called the Green Monster, and that's what I named my garden. So I had all kinds of stuff in there. I had tomatoes. I mean, all kinds of vegetables, all kinds of stuff.
I love that so much for you. That's great. Gardening's a good hobby to have right now. I was just listening to your single Happy Does earlier today on the station, which is climbing the charts. And what was it about that song that really hooked you and pulled you in? Was there any line in particular that you just fell in love with?
Well, not any line in particular, but it was just the whole narrative of the song. I mean, I think that I think my wheelhouse is talking about things that make obviously people happy. But look, I feel like that in our everyday life right now, we live our everyday lives, it seems like, watching other people live their lives. You know, with and trapped within our devices. And Katie, when I first heard Happy Does, I literally had two different devices within a hand's reach of me. You know, I had my phone and my iPad, and I was multitasking, and I was doing one thing here and one thing there, and I was, trying to communicate with someone else in the middle of all of that. And when I heard Happy Does, it just made me sit for a second and think about, I'm not really living my own life because I'm trying to keep up with everything and watch everybody live theirs. And that's just kind of how our brain is conditioned these days. And this song for me was a reminder to myself to, try to live in the moment and try to breathe in and breathe out and remember that there's a whole big world out there outside of your phone, and so that's what that song was for me anyway, and I thought that somebody else might need to hear it too. So that's why we released it.
That's so true. I feel the same way. I feel like I connected with it immediately. Like the first opening line about Sunoco Charlie, like I had a gas station guy like that growing up. We had Circle K Lewis. And I was like, oh my gosh, so like just that like immediate thing. And then like the rest of it, I was like, oh, I feel like I can like, there's so many things applicable about your own life that you can hear in that song. And I feel like Happy Does fits so perfectly into your catalog of music and the vibe for your live show. But I'm sure when you were recording it, you were not anticipating putting it out into the world that we are currently sitting in right now.
Not really, but I just felt like it was a message worth hearing, and I'm glad we did, because I feel like that the song like Happy Does just promotes connectivity. I think it's very interesting they call it social media because it makes you so antisocial, but I think that's what the message of this song was. It's to me, it's about a song about connection and about just realizing that there's a lot of life to live out there if you just go do it. And I've caught myself. When you live on a bus and you're bored and you're on your phone and all the time and you're communicating and you're, it's just the way we live our lives today. But it's I don't know that it's that good for us, So that's why when I heard Happy Does, it just made me think about all of that, and made me want to escape from my phone and look at the sky and watch a sunset and share that with someone and feel connected to the universe, and that's what that's what this song is all about.
I love that. And I feel like so many people have leaned on music to get through this last year. I'm curious, what have you been listening to a lot of?
Oh wow, I've you know what, Katie, I've got so much music and on my computer. I've got so much music in my home library. It's something different every day. I'm not sure. There's just so much stuff. Like I have different playlists for different things. Like when I run, it's something that is different. When I'm on the boat, it's a completely different, more chill playlist. There's a lot of Jack Johnson on that playlist, and there's a lot of just stuff that seems to fit the moment. But when I'm when I'm working out, I've got a lot of really hard guitars in there, and I've got. And when I'm having a few beers, sometimes it's more country, and I don't know. I'm just so consumed with music, and I've always been that way.
I love that. I feel like you would have a very well-rounded group of playlists.
Yeah, I do. I grew up in East Tennessee, so there was country and there was gospel and bluegrass, but there was also, well, it was called rock then, but now it's what's considered classic rock. But it was, I had so much coming in, and it was feeding my brain as a child and as a young adult. And I think once you start making music and you start going down the road to where making music is your life, it only makes sense that the music you made is a direct reflection of what you soaked up as a sponge early on in your life, and so that's been the way it's been for me.
Absolutely. And it's crazy. I was looking, it's been a little over 23 years ago since She's Got It All became your first number one song. And here you are 31 number one songs later. Do you remember where you were or what you were doing when you got the call that song was going to be like your first big milestone?
I do. I was on a photo shoot in Puerto Rico, in a little town called Mayagüez, Puerto Rico. And this is before we had iPhones, it's before there was any kind of communication. So you had to get in a phone booth and call the record label and call, whoever. And that's what I did. I knew it was 50-50 if we were going to get number one on that song. And after the photo shoot was done, I before I went to dinner and had a few beers, I called the label and they told me it was on a Monday, and they told me She's Got It All went number one. It was a really, really wonderful moment for me. I mean, it was because I had been putting out records for a while, and they didn't get anywhere close to going to number one. So that was a really, really that was an amazing moment to know that a song you went to the studio with and made a record that it's the number one. And I'm telling you, I know you said we had 31. The 31st feels just as good as the first one. And it's having people care about your music and having them connect with it and want to see it live just never gets old, I promise you.
I'm sure it doesn't. And after 19 albums, I'm going to put you on the spot because you do have an unbelievable catalog of music. But if you could only ever be remembered for one song, what would you want that song to be?
That's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, like my favorite song to do live, and when we do it live every night, the show just seems to go to a different level. And it's one of my favorite songs I wrote, and I wrote it by myself on the bus one night. I know we left, I think it was Colorado Springs, and we were going to go play somewhere else. And I was literally up all night, and I wrote I Go Back by the time we got to the next city. And that's still one of my favorite songs that I wrote. It seems to be a song that just takes the show whenever we do it to the next level, and a lot of people connect with it. So if I had to pick one, it would be that or Old Blue Chair, which was on a more of acoustic record. It was the first, it was on an album that I wrote on my boat, over a 5 or 6 year period. So those two songs I really am proud of that I wrote and wrote them by myself.
I love that. And when you talk about your shows, I know how excited people are to finally be able to get back and see their Kenny show. But I would love to know, do you have any like pre-show rituals or post-show rituals that you do like to get yourself pumped up and then to come back down before and after a show?
Well, yeah, I think that my pre-show ritual is pretty much the same. Like I've got meet and greet around 6:50. And that takes me about an hour to get through all that. So it's almost 7:50. So I go on stage around 8:50 or 9 o'clock every night. So I've got about 45 minutes to say a quick hello to all of our guests. And we have this area outside the bus called the Sock Monkey Lounge. And we got couches, especially for doing a stadium show. We got couches, we got a Blue Chair Bay bar set up. We got bartenders, and we have music playing. We have all this whole area out there, and it allows me to say hi to everybody very quickly, but not stay too long, because I have a job to do actually. So that's part of the pre-show ritual. but once I'm done with all that, I go back into the bus. I lay on the floor, and I just breathe. I do all these breathing exercises where I breathe through my nose and out my mouth really hard, and it helps me to. It helps to get oxygen into your brain, into your bloodstream. It settles you down. It takes care of all anxiety, and it just makes me focus on what I have to do. And that's part of my pre-show ritual. And then my road manager, David Farmer. Yeah, it's great to do it's just in your everyday life, but especially if you're going to go play in front of 50,000 people, it really helps, especially if you're nervous or whatever. But also, then I got 4 guys on the road with me that I grew up with as, we were all kids together. We went to high school together and college, and about 5 minutes before I leave and they all work for me now on the road. So we've all experienced this dream together. So still to this day, they did it when we were playing the clubs and the state fairs and the bars. They would come on the bus about 5 minutes before I was supposed to leave the bus to walk to the stage. And still to this day, whether we're playing the New York Jets football stadium or the New York Giants football stadium or Philadelphia's football stadium or Foxborough or wherever we play throughout the country, they still come to my bus 5 minutes before, just like we did when we were playing a bar. And it's just a moment for us to give a high five and to once again recognize how fortunate we are to do what we do.
That's so awesome to be surrounded by the people that you love. And then I'll ask you one last question, Kenny, and I'll let you get going. But I ask this in every interview, and it's about the last time that you were starstruck, because I know that people are certainly very starstruck when they get to meet you in a meet and greet. But can you remember the last time in your life or your career that you felt like very sincerely starstruck to meet someone?
Yes. It was a couple of years ago, and we were playing this festival somewhere. It was either South Dakota or North Dakota. And Kevin Costner walked up on my bus and said hello. And I couldn't believe it. I just watched JFK, his movie, on the bus like 2 nights prior. So it was really strange to have him walk up on the bus and stick out his hand, and I was starstruck for a moment, but he's a really great guy, and we talked for a long time, but I did catch myself going, wow, I mean, that's Kevin Costner. It was really weird, but I guess because I just watched JFK is one of my favorite movies, but to have him walk up on the bus and want to chat was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Kenny Chesney, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for your time today. Hope we see you out on the road very soon.
Me too, Katie. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye.